The Reconstruction era, which followed the Civil War, was a transformative yet tumultuous period in American history, marked by efforts to rebuild the nation and integrate millions of newly freed African Americans into society. The formal abolition of slavery was a crucial first step in this process, achieved through the ratification of the 13th Amendment in December 1865. This amendment legally abolished slavery across the United States, declaring that neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime, would exist within the country. This monumental legal shift signaled the end of centuries of legalized slavery and was intended to set the stage for a more just and equitable society. Following the abolition of slavery, the task of Reconstruction fell to President Andrew Johnson, who assumed office after the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. In 1865, Johnson initiated what became known as presidential Reconstruction. His approach aimed to quickly restore the Southern states to the Union with minimal changes to their pre-war social and political structures. Johnson's policies were lenient toward the former Confederates. He offered broad pardons to those who took an oath of allegiance to the Union and allowed Southern states to draft new constitutions that acknowledged the end of slavery but placed few other demands on them. This leniency extended to his opposition to the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which was designed to grant citizenship and equal rights to African Americans. Johnson vetoed the bill, arguing that it infringed on states' rights and that African Americans were not yet ready for full citizenship. However, Congress overrode his veto, marking the first time in American history that a major piece of legislation was enacted over a presidential veto. Johnson's approach to Reconstruction was met with strong opposition from many Republicans, particularly the radical Republicans who believed that the South needed to undergo significant changes to ensure true freedom and equality for African Americans. These radical Republicans, led by figures such as Thaddeus Stevens and Charles Sumner, disagreed with Johnson's lenient policies and sought to impose harsher terms on the Southern states. Their dissatisfaction with Johnson's approach led to the passage of the Reconstruction Acts in 1867, which marked the beginning of congressional or radical Reconstruction. Under these acts, the Southern states were divided into 5 military districts, each governed by a Union general. This military oversight ensured that new state constitutions were drafted with provisions for universal male suffrage, regardless of race. Additionally, the 14th Amendment, granting citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including former slaves, was required to be ratified by Southern states before they could be readmitted to the Union. As part of the radical Republicans' efforts to secure voting rights for African Americans, the 15th Amendment was passed in 1870, guaranteeing that the right to vote could not be denied based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. This amendment was a significant milestone in the struggle for civil rights and marked a major victory for the radical Republicans' vision of Reconstruction. With these measures in place, the Southern states were gradually readmitted to the Union, and by 1870, all had been restored to full participation in the federal government. However, the Reconstruction era was also marked by intense social and racial tensions, particularly in the South, where many white Southerners deeply resented the changes being imposed on their society. This resentment fueled the rise of white supremacist groups such as the Ku Klux Klan, which was founded in 1866. The Klan and similar organizations used terror and violence to intimidate African Americans and their allies, aiming to undermine Reconstruction efforts and restore white dominance in the South. Despite federal efforts to curb such violence, including the enforcement acts of the early 1870s, the Klan and other groups continued to be a formidable force against the progress of Reconstruction. The Reconstruction era came to an official end in 1877, following the contested presidential election of 1876 and the subsequent Compromise of 1877, in which Republican Rutherford B. Hayes was awarded the presidency in exchange for the withdrawal of federal troops from the South. This compromise effectively ended federal enforcement of Reconstruction policies, leading to the return of white Democratic control in the Southern states and the implementation of Jim Crow laws that would enforce racial segregation and disenfranchisement for decades to come. The end of Reconstruction marked the beginning of a long and difficult period for African Americans in the South, as the promises of equality and civil rights made during Reconstruction were largely abandoned by the federal government.